Maya, welcome to the podcast. It's so good to finally get to talk to you face to face, so to speak. We've been in discussion probably for the last few months, I would say, between Medium and Substack, and I'm a huge fan of your work, and it's just so good to have you here today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, Maya, let's just dive right in and tell me a little bit about yourself as we get going. So tell me about your background, where you're from, your family life, your work, just everything. Go for
Okay. Oh, everything. Okay. So
it.
just everything. Okay. So first, let me say I'm also a huge fan of your work, which is basically, I mean, that's how cool people meet online. It's like you really like someone and then they like what you do and it's super awesome. Okay. So I'm from Bulgaria. And currently, I have two kids, happily married, two boys. So I'm living with three men. That's
Hmm.
quite like I'm thinking about writing a whole other thing just about that because that's quite the experience. But I started about 10 years ago, 2014, as a solopreneur. I quit my job because I just couldn't work for someone else anymore. And I didn't know that I wanted to be a solopreneur. I didn't like, I wanted to be a coach at the time. I couldn't put my finger on what I wanted to be. I just felt like I didn't want to run like a big business, have a company and employees and an office and all that. But I also didn't want to work for someone else. And 10 years ago, that term solopreneur and creator, it was just beginning to sort of be born,
Hmm.
online. And at the time, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I just decided to be a coach. So I got my certificate, built a website, and I was just like wildly unsuccessful. Like just couldn't really couldn't get clients. I got a few clients, and but my website I think brought me one client, and I invested thousands in it. So it was just something was off, And at the time, I was just so confused, and I started writing. And I've always loved to write, but I thought that who would pay me to write? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
come on. And then I started writing. I found this like opportunity writing articles just because I was certified coach. So you see, this is how solopreneurship work. And very often this is how things work in life is like you take the first step and then there's another opportunity. And then there's another, like you don't know really, right?
Hmm.
What's ahead. And then just because I was a coach, and I applied to this opportunity and they said, oh, we're getting like thousands of applications to write like paid articles for this blog, but because you're a certified coach, so that adds a little something and we like your writing. So let's do it. And I was an online nobody, so I didn't have like a following, social media, anything. But just because I had my coaching certificate, so they could write under my name, certified life coach,
Hmm.
it was something. And that's how I started writing. And then I decided to offer freelance writing on Fiverr. And that was it didn't happen right away. Like I created a few gigs and one of them finally exploded. And I became a writer slash copywriter somehow. I don't know what happened. Like suddenly, there was like a move where I had to decide between coaching and writing because I didn't have time to do both. And with the coaching, like I love coaching, but because of the time differences in the world, it's like your schedule's all over the place. And I just decided to focus on the writing. And for a very long time, I was just quietly building a business on Fiverr. I like again, nobody knew my name. I didn't have a newsletter, didn't write like for this other blog that I wrote for. Like we worked together a few more years, but then I stopped writing for them too because I had to do full on client work. It was so busy.
Hmm.
But I didn't have anything else other than Fiverr. Like I was just doing Fiverr. And then when I got pregnant, I just completely burned out. Like I had other clients too, regular clients from recommendations and stuff.
Hmm.
But as far as online work goes, it was just Fiverr. I didn't have any other profile, etc.
Hmm.
And when I got pregnant with my first, that was 2018, I just completely burned out and I just said, no, I can't do this anymore. So I stopped, and then I returned to it. It was a mess. So I want to
Hmm.
tell everyone, like, if you're building a business, it's okay that it's a mess. Because the whole time I was doing mistakes, I was like, oh my God, that was it. I messed it up. It's never gonna get better again. Like I threw away the thing that I was building, and it was just not true. Like there's literally no a final failure online because the internet's moving so fast and people forget or they don't care,
Yeah.
or both. So it's like, you can make mistakes and then come back and be a huge success, and then you
Mm.
can make a mistake again and then come back again. So unless you become a victim of the cancel culture, I feel like these days this is like the thing to be worried about. But other than this, like everything's allowed.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there was like a little bit of like wondering what to do, how to do it. Do I really want to work with clients only? I felt like, and again, I couldn't express that as clearly back then, that I just needed a more passive way to earn an income. I still liked writing. I just didn't like working all the time.
Mm.
And that's when I found Medium. So I started writing on Medium, and I honestly can't even believe what happened there because I was just reading on Medium in the beginning, and I was like, I could write these things. So yeah, so like I like that's what I do. And so it was a bit of a difficult moment where, because back in 2019 Medium didn't have the partner program in Bulgaria, so you
Mm.
couldn't really do that. And because I used to live in the UK, like I had some friends there and some connections with accountants and lawyers, etc. And they helped me set up a company in the UK so that I could
Mm.
actually make money on Medium. So it wasn't like a super easy process. So again, a short lesson for everyone, that it's okay that it's not easy. You just find a way,
Mm.
it's not like nothing's impossible. You just have to figure out how important it is to you and find a way if it's important.
That's a
So it
great
was really
lesson.
important to me, right?
Mm.
And it was really important to me to make this work because for the first time ever, what I realized is like I can make money by writing what I want to write, not like what my clients want me to write. That's
Mhm.
very interesting. So I started writing, and I think another thing that sort of told me that I should put more focus and effort into it was that my first story got curated. And back in the day, before like the boosted program, you probably remember there was the curation
Mm.
system. And my first story that I posted got curated. It got accepted in a big publication. I was like, whoa, like, okay, so this is happening. And on my third month, I made like $1,000, like, because the story went viral.
Wow.
And it was really, really exciting. But again, and this is where psychology sort of creeps in. It's like, oh, but this is probably not going to last. Like this was just a one-time hit.
Mm.
I can't really make this sustainable. Even though I saw all these people, like these were literally the golden days of Medium. You had your Tim Dennings and like your Tom Kruglers. I'm sorry, maybe I'm not saying his last name right. And like everyone, Michael Thompson, like everyone, like these huge names, Jessica Wildfire, they were doing like seriously 5 figures on Medium every month, like
Mm.
insane money. Um, and I was just like, you know what? I don't think this is gonna last. So when I got like a few new clients for writing, I was just like, let me just focus on that. So I
Mm.
was still writing, but it was very on and off and different topics. I would write about relationship one day and about personal development the other and about business the other. It was just all over the place.
Mm.
So I kept on writing and making some money. Some months were good, other months were bad, some months were really good. But then, it was at some point I just decided, you know what? I think I want to make this creator economy thing really work, like really make a name for myself. Like, I don't want to be someone in the shadows anymore, someone who only does Fiverr and only does recommendations. Like I want to be famous, but not like famous, but I just want to have my own little crowd and community that, I can earn some money. Just I'm not greedy because I went through that process of at this moment where I started selling my premium services, and it was almost like a dare. I was like, so I bought this course from like this really top high level premium copywriter, works like with Microsoft,
Mm.
and she really walked me through how to how to offer really high level copywriting. And I was like, let me see if I can sell this. So I started selling this, and I could sell this. And it was just the process. It's not like I'm like the huge, again, it's about making it work. You want to make it work, you find a way to make it work. So
Mhm.
um so I started selling this and I was like, okay, so now I have like these high paying clients. Let's start an agency. Maybe I'll become a millionaire and it'll be super cool. So, so I got an office where I live. It's a really cool coastal town, not too big, not too small. So I got an office downtown and I hired a few people and it was really like, oh, like, look at me now. And, and like, I think like 4 or 5 months that lasted. And I was just exhausted because you work with clients like that. They are so demanding, as they should be, right? I mean, they're paying all these money. And it's not like I can like defend my work or justify because it's a whole process. Like you go through these researches and user testing platforms and then I actually brought them results, but the process was difficult. Like I was always in meetings, I was always researching something. There was barely any writing involved.
Mm,
Um, and this wasn't for me really. And the funny thing is I closed down the agency and then COVID came.
mm,
And what happened, I was like, oh my God, how are we going to make money now? And what happened is the freelance business actually exploded because
oh,
a
really?
lot of people had to, yeah, well, for me, that's how I saw it because a lot of people couldn't afford their full-time staff anymore.
Mm,
So they started looking for freelancers, right? So because we also, when I say we, I also mean my husband because he's in marketing and on some projects we work together. And he's helped me really with growing the copywriting business.
mm,
First of all, in terms of thinking about it as a business, not so much a freelance practice where I was like thinking about it as a self-employed. And it's again something I like to talk about a lot in my newsletter because I feel like there's a big difference between like when you think about yourself as self-employed, you wait for people to give you their process, their ideas, and you fit into their way of work.
mm,
And then you become overwhelmed because this means literally working for someone else, but you're not quite. So
mm.
now you have like 3 or 4 or 5 employers, basically, and
Yeah.
you have to deal with everyone's different ways of work. And you're overwhelmed, but you're worried about money, and it sucks, you know. And if you want to be a solopreneur, this is not the way to think about it. You have to be an entrepreneur where you bring the process, you bring the value, you say, this is what I want to offer you. This is what I want to do for you. This is why I think it's valuable for you.
Hmm.
I have the track record to prove it, hopefully. And it's totally different way of working, right? So
Mm,
clients follow your process, and then it's easier for you to manage that.
yeah.
Um, so anyway, when big businesses during COVID had to maybe, fire some people or do layoffs or whatever it's called, I'm not sure. I feel like many of them, marketing professionals especially, I feel like were probably among the first to go. And it sucks really that
Mm,
a lot of businesses don't see the value in marketing.
mm,
But this is what happened. And suddenly our inbox was absolutely exploding, like both on Fiverr and outside. Like
mm,
people are like, oh, can you just help me with this one project? Because like I have, for example, I had a little store and I've always had a website, but I never really paid any attention to it. And now I want to sell products online because my store is closed.
mm,
Um, and can you help me with the campaign? And suddenly we were so busy again. And again, it was like the medium and this type of writing, this part of the thing that I wanted to do sort of got pushed back. And then eventually it was just like enough. Like I can't deal with this anymore. Like I tried it all possible ways, right? I
mm,
tried to do low cost writing, like for a lot of people really quickly, like into a process. I try to do like premium copywriting, really expensive, just me. Then I tried to build an agency. Then I tried this and we had little work and we had a lot of work and I was never happy. Like literally
mm,
like what is happening, all these different scenarios that I tried, I just wasn't happy. And I was like, you know what, like this is it, I'm doing the creator stuff. And that's when I really went full on. I started my Substack, and I was actually last year, funnily enough, after all those years, this is how long it took me. So that's one of the reasons that I'm really trying to make my newsletters and my writing like very clear, and sometimes maybe it's even a little bit rude almost, as in like this is how you do it, like, and you don't argue with me. And obviously everyone's free. Obviously, everyone's free, to do whatever they want. But what I want for them is to not waste that same amount of time that I wasted going back and forth and sort of not trusting my intuition about what I really wanted and what could
Mm,
bring in money, etc. So finally last year, I was like, okay, like this is it. I have to make this happen. So I decided I want to be featured in big media. I had no idea how to do it. Eventually, I did it. I decided I wanted to start a newsletter. I did it. I had no idea that it was going to grow, meaning like in the beginning, oh my God, David, I was a snail. Like it took me 4 months to get to 100 subscribers. And I read people now on Knows, they're like, oh, 3 weeks, I'm at 100. Woohoo! I'm like, what's happening?
happens, doesn't it?
Right? And I'm like, okay, so I have all this experience and I claim to be this amazing writer, etc. And it took me 4 months and it took them 3 weeks. So I'm like, what am I even? But that's the thing that we all grow at our own pace. And
Mm,
actually, once I got to 100, it sort of exploded. And like a year, I was at about 1,200. And then now I'm double that. So I'm 2,400 or something like that. And it sort of keeps growing and the paid subscribers keep coming. And it's like, I don't even feel like, I mean, considering the amount of work I used to put in clients' work, where it was like easily 50 to 60 hours per week in the
mm,
most, like the busiest times, running a newsletter and writing on Medium is like, first of all, it's a joy. Like I love doing it. And second of all, it's not nearly that much work, which means I have time to like, I also work with like a couple of clients just because I love them. I love working with them. And their projects. And I have time to be like, oh, let's build a product this week.
mm.
Let's see. Because I didn't have products at all. This is like literally this year is the first time ever I actually started building products, and I already have like 4 products live. I've sold about 50 something units of something without even like it hasn't really been a push of like, okay, let's just launch this, do like a big landing page. I know how to do it because I've done it for clients. It
Mm-hmm.
hasn't really been like that. It was just like testing the waters.
Yeah.
So this is my very long way of telling you where I am. I hope that makes sense.
That was a very good comprehensive answer. I want to
Thank
go
you.
back to a couple of things as well because obviously you said a lot there of really, really good stuff. I want to go back to what you said about writing for big media. You sort of almost brushed past that and said, "Yeah, I just did that," and then you moved on. How did you do that? How did you find yourself in a position where you were writing for big media? What exactly do you mean by big media, and like how did that happen?
Okay, so I decided that because you know how like everyone that we look up to online have sort of been featured here and there. Like we're talking Forbes or Business Insider, Fast Company, Inc. Magazine, whatever it is. Those are just the business part of it. But maybe like if you're a relationship consultant, maybe Cosmopolitan or maybe other like
Mm,
Psychology Today or whatever it is. So I was like, I really want to be able to add something like that behind my name. And I know that there are a lot of people who are like, that's not even a problem for me anymore. Like, like what's the big deal? And that's the thing that a lot of people don't talk about how they got there. Or if they talk about it, it's very much like, oh, it just happened to me. So for example, Tim Denning got like a viral article on Medium, and then Business Insider messaged him and told him, we want to feature this in Business Insider. So it was like, okay, like, and it's
mm,
not like he actually tells in the story of how this happened. He shares that he used to submit to Business Insider a lot, and then he said to himself, you know what, I'm just not gonna like, I'm gonna leave this. I don't care, whatever. I'm gonna do whatever I want because this is how Tim operates, and I love him for it. But it doesn't really work for all of us this way, right?
mm,
So I was like, I really want to get there. And I started doing research and sort of getting this information about like how PR works. Well, PR in the sense of online publicity, not so much in the traditional sense. And so I found out that a few, like, for example, a few editions like Forbes and Business Insider and Fast Company have open, well, actually, Business Insider and Fast Company have open submissions sort of instructions and pages where they tell you this is how you submit to us. Just like it's not, I mean, it's different process if you want to be like a paid writer for them or if you just want to contribute. And I just wanted to contribute and be featured there. So that again, there's a difference for that. And then with Forbes, it was, and I read this, some guy's blog, but I can't remember the name now. Anyway, and he said Forbes don't officially accept contributor submissions, but there is a way. So you have to know what you want to write. You want to find the editor that works on this section. So that requires a bit of a research, but it's not that difficult to find if you go on the Forbes website and find the sections where your writing would fit best. And then you can just see the editors. And then you find them on LinkedIn, and then you get their sort of contacts or emails or whatever. And it, again, usually it's not that hard. And then you submit to them. So I started submitting. So and I read a lot on Forbes and Business Insider and Fast Company. This is really important. You have to read the things that these guys publish, how they expect it to look like, sound like, feel like, you know, because they have a certain style. And then I started submitting to them, and it was completely useless. Like no answer for like 6-7 months every week. This is what, like, I made a goal of it, and it's something that I'm actually writing about the newsletter in the newsletter this week. Is like, set a stretch goal, give it a certain time per week, and like set it for a year and then work on it every week. I hate the month part. As a month shouldn't be a time frame ever in your goal setting thing.
I saw your post about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because it's not like in a week, it's really easy to say on Friday, oh, did I do this or not? And if you didn't do it, okay, let's just postpone it for next week. But like, you're conscious about it. And when it's a month, it's so easy to be like, what was it that I wanted to do on the 20th? Like, I forgot. So yeah, so I started every week posting, sending, submissions to them. And then it was just completely useless. But then one interesting thing happened is that the editor that I submitted to, who worked for Forbes, the Forbes editor, I saw that, and you know how LinkedIn shows you who viewed your profile? And I saw that she looked at my profile after I submitted to her. And then my LinkedIn profile was, and it still isn't great, but like before it was just completely just, I hadn't even like made the slightest effort to make it look good, So what happened is basically that she didn't write back, but this gave me a piece of information that was really important. It was like, okay, so it's not that the writing is bad, it's just that I'm an online nobody. So no one on big media will feature someone who hasn't achieved anything. Like, you go to big media when you already have something to tell them. And I was like, okay, so let's see what I can do. And one of the things, obviously, that I was really good at was my Fiverr success. Because on Fiverr, really, I've made like, now I think it's close to 250,000, like $250,000 on Fiverr. And it's not a lot of people that can say this. I think based on my research, I'm at top 1% on freelancers on Fiverr. So I put this in my LinkedIn bio. And again, I started submitting and nothing. So then what I did was, okay, so who writes for Business Insider? Let me check it out. And then I found a few people who wrote the type of stories that I would want to write. And some of them were even about Fiverr, about writing, or about online business. And I followed them on LinkedIn. And the reason I followed them and sort of wanted to connect with them was more to see if they were offering some sort of advice about how to write, for example, in Business Insider. But then what happened was, I had fixed my LinkedIn profile and I reached out to this writer, just sending a connect request. I didn't write anything. I didn't pitch anything. And she just messaged me the next day, oh, I saw you're doing really well on Fiverr. I want to interview you about this. And I was like, woohoo, like finally, this is happening. And then this year, actually, because I decided to sort of keep building up on this, not just leave it at Business Insider, right? And it will be great if at one point someone comes to me and say, oh, you know what? I'm with Forbes. Let us feature your story. That'd be great. And maybe someday it will happen, but I'm not going to just sit here and wait on that. I want to like build my own success. So this year I subscribed to Lucy Werner's Substack, and she's a former PR strategist. She had a PR agency in London. And she actually helped me get a feature in Metro, UK.
Wow.
And
Yes,
it's
yeah.
So I mean, it's still in the editing process, and it's been a slow process because people are on vacations a lot in the summer. So like someone's not there, whatever. but we're working on it. We're in the final phases now, final edits, and it should be posted. It should be published soon. But again, just as even though this one is not about online success, it's like a personal story.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm a writer, so it's okay to have a personal story and it published in a newspaper. That's still a great success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's another addition. So every year I had decided for myself, like every year, if I can add something to that publicity thing of mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Publicity project, let's call it. I feel like it's really going to help me year over year grow in terms of, first of all, be seen by more people, but also gain more credibility because just by putting those names and those logos, next to your name, it really helps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so key. And I think people kind of forget that sometimes. I think there's a bit of a misconception, especially on platforms like X, that you can just kind of start from absolutely nothing and suddenly become, like a Tim Denning, as you say,
Yeah.
and not really get that sort of credibility that you need because people aren't really going to listen to you unless you do have those titles beside your name. I've written for this thing or I've achieved this, this number of, uh, dollars worth or number of articles that I've written or whatever it is. And I think that's really important. And I think Lucy is great, and it's really cool you're working with her because she seems to be the person to talk to about how to hype yourself in a way that isn't
Mm.
kind of, doesn't sound intrusive and doesn't sound like you're just bragging and bigging yourself up for no reason. I think there's a really fine line there. I think I've even found that on Substack. Maybe you find this as well, between humble bragging or and actually promoting yourself in the right way. Um, what do you think about
Yeah.
that? Because I think you mentioned that recently, actually. What do you think about the whole kind of humble bragging, for want of a better phrase, kind of thing that goes on sometimes on social media in general? Like, is that a bit of an issue possibly with people? Is that actually doing more damage to the reputation than helping them? What do you think?
I feel like it's a really difficult issue if you're not, I mean, if you're trying to build your business, because obviously people are inspired by people who have achieved success. So it's so tempting. And it's also like a great feeling when you hit a certain milestone and you want to share that emotion. Like I
Mm,
get that. But also it gets really old when I feel like when you do it a lot, when you do it literally on every 100 subscribers or every whatever, and also when you do it in the same way.
mm,
Like I feel like if you tell me different things, like I want to hear that you published a book. I want to hear that, and I want to hear that you hit 10,000 subscribers. I mean, that's great, but I don't want to hear literally like every new subscriber you get, oh, you let me know. Oh, okay, that I don't care about these things. So
mm,
there's a fine line between like something where you celebrate an achievement and you also build up your credibility and something where it's literally bragging. And I hate the term humble bragging because you know what? If you're gonna brag, it's okay. Like I
mm,
wanna, it's not because I feel like confidence is so important in online business, as in anything. But especially if you're starting an online business, there's so much that can play tricks on your mind. And confidence and sort of staying grounded within yourself is super important. So I don't want to say to people, oh, don't share your wins because it's
mm,
not a big deal. No, it is a big deal. Absolutely. I just want to say, like, learn to handle these emotions that are going to come up. So you hit 1,000 subscribers. Okay, if you share this, then don't tell us tomorrow about your first paid, or like wait till
mm,
you hit 100, or tell us a different win, or first tell us a little bit about, now that you told us a win, tell us a little bit about how you got there. Don't just
mm,
skip to the next win and then it's win, win, win. And then there's no, I hate the adding the words humble brag. It's like, no, like this is not a humble brag, just brag. Okay,
yeah,
brag and then don't brag. Those are the two options. Humble brag is stupid. You're not being humble, you're bragging. And then there's time to be humble and time not to be humble, and it's okay, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
I don't know if that really answered your question. It's just because it's just such a complex issue. I do feel that some people are overdoing it, but then again, I feel like it's observant relevant, right? Like maybe
yeah,
to some people it's not that annoying, and to some people it's more annoying. So it's really you do you, but just be conscious about it. Don't do it because you feel like everyone's doing it and you got to do it too. No,
Hmm.
like just be you, you know?
Yeah, totally. And do you think that, I mean, just from your own perspective, whenever you see someone sharing a big win, whether it's like they've done a lot or it's just a big milestone, does that make you feel positive about yourself, or does that make you feel kind of crap?
No, no, that
Yeah.
does feel like, and I think Tom Krugler, I can't learn to see his last name, but he told me that the last time that I talked about it on Notes, and he was like, "Oh, I so agree," and I feel like when people read massive success stories, it makes them feel like shit. And I have a little story about that actually,
Okay.
which I think illustrates it very well. So before my first birth, I went to this like birth coach, natural birth training class, etc. And she said something very interesting. She said, if you have a painless, just perfect birth, don't tell anyone because that now you're making them expect that for themselves.
Hmm.
And it's not what's going to happen because she's been like with people, like she was a doula or something, like she has been through 100 births. And she was like, maybe out of the 500 births I've done, one was painless and perfect. And now imagine this one person going out there and being like, birth is not a problem. I just did it. It was awesome. Everything was okay. And then you feel like total shit when you it happening to you and it hurts like crazy. And God forbid there's like a problem or something, and you feel bad that maybe you didn't do it right. Maybe
Hmm.
you didn't push the way you were supposed to, or you didn't eat healthy food or whatever it is. Like you blamed yourself. And I feel like it's such a profound advice and it applies to everything. Like if something just naturally happened easy for you, don't just be there like, oh, this is so easy. Like anyone can do it. No,
Hmm.
because there's different factors. I mean, we have to remember here, it might have been luck,
Hmm.
but it might have been that you have so much more experience in that area and no one knows about that. And then you show up and be like, oh, I just did it, ta-da. And I feel like in the LinkedIn, in the Medium story where I told you that I got like $1,000 in 3 months. I mean, I had 7 years of writing experience, literally day in, day out. And I think we talked recently on Notes that I recently discovered that I had written over 1 million words.
Hmm.
And you tell this to someone, and I just told it, I know, but it was like part of my story. Like, oh, I wrote an article 3 months in, and it made $1,000. But yeah, but it wasn't like my first article or my third article. So
Yeah.
just because I was starting on Medium didn't mean that I was just starting out as a writer. So these things are so important, to just
Hmm.
really consider where you are and where others are. Don't compare yourself, like learn, but also to answer your question again in a very long way, I feel like, yeah, it's making people feel like shit. And especially when it's a win that's come way too soon, for example, way too fast. Oh, I
Yeah.
got to like 1,000 in 2 months. Well, you know what? F you, like keep quiet. I mean,
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think like Veronica of the Lemon Tree Mindset is really good at kind of sharing a win or sharing a milestone, but then kind of pointing out that all this other stuff went before it. Like she wrote all these articles or it took this length of time or it was all this effort. And I think that's really, really important because people do just kind of see these things and think, oh, that person did something I can never do, or it was only pure luck or chance, and there's no way it's going to happen to me. Lightning's not going to strike twice in the same place. And if you do kind of explain that actually this took 5 years to get to this point, right, to write 100 articles before this one took off for whatever it is, then it just makes it a doable for the person who's reading it. So they're not going to be overwhelmed by it and think I can't do that as well. And B, it just gives it like a roadmap for how they're going to get there. They can say, well, this is how they did it. I can follow the same process. It's not going to be exactly the same journey for me, but if I do the same things that they do and do it in my own way, there's no reason why I can't achieve that level of success too.
and you know what I loved about Veronica was when she was reaching 100 paid subscribers, she actually got a screenshot at 85, and she was like, "Oh yay, I'm 15 away." So you see how this is not like it's a win sharing, but it's not like I'm gonna wait to hit 100 and then I'm gonna share. It's
Yeah.
like no, like this is me getting there. It's a process. I'm still 15 away. If you want to support me, do it now. So help me reach 100. So it's really like we're part of this journey. It's
Hmm.
not like win, 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 and now you feel like really bad. And it's another great example of this is, and I like, is Lee Child's writing, which is and you've written novels too. I don't know, do you plot or are you a pantser, as they call them?
I'm 100% pantser. I never know what's happening in my books until I've written it.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things is I usually for new writers, and again, here it is again, like you're not a new writer. Maybe you've written different things, but you're not a new writer. But the thing is, for new writers, I always tell them, if you want to write a book, like plot it. Plot it. If it's a first book, like write like the first chapter and then the middle chapter and then the end chapter, just like a draft, just like get it out of your head, and someone once said to me, "Oh, but I read that Lee Child doesn't plot." And I'm like, okay, so let's do a little bit of background check here. Okay, so Lee Child has worked in TV and creative TV for 20 years. Like this guy, literally, he doesn't need to plot. It's in his head. Literally what needs to happen when, it's in his head. So again, be careful. And I also speak about that's why you have to be careful when you're learning from, like, you're starting out and then you're reading about how Stephen King writes. I mean, okay, but like take it with a grain of salt because maybe some advice wouldn't apply to you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think you have to look at what people write and like through your own lens and say, well, that's how that happened for them, and I know that it can happen a similar way for me, but I have to change this aspect of it and approach it in this way because Stephen King talks about he writes 2,000 words every day of his novel until he has it finished, the first draft, and that is doable, but it's not necessarily doable for someone who maybe has a family to take care of and they've got kids in the morning to get them off to school and all that sort of stuff, and maybe don't have 2 or 3 hours a day to write every single morning. Like I'll write at the minute. I'm doing this 1,000 word challenge where I'm writing 1,000 words a day at least
Yeah,
in the
I
morning.
saw. How's that
Yeah,
going?
it's going well. Yeah, like I've done it so far. 21 days into August, and I did it for maybe the last week of July as well. So it's about a month now. And I've been able to write more than that when I've written my novels in the past. But I have the luxury of time. I'm able to get up at 6 and write for a couple of hours. My wife and I don't have kids yet, so we don't have to get them out to school and things like that. We have the time and space to do that kind of thing. But not everybody can do that. So that kind of advice won't necessarily apply probably to most people. And most people are writing, last thing at night before they go to bed, or they're trying to squeeze it in somewhere, maybe at lunchtime or that sort of thing. So as you say, you have to do you. You have to do what works for you and try and make that work. Take someone else's advice in an article about here's how to frame a piece, or here's how you put this together, or here's how you create a content system, which is the kind of thing I'm writing about at the minute. And apply it to yourself and tweak it to make it suit you because it's not going to work in the same way for everybody. And if you try to force yourself into that mold, you will almost inevitably fail because it won't work in the same way. And especially if it's advice from like 5 years ago that you're trying to follow, like here's how you build a following on Twitter to feed your email list. That's not going to work anymore. That just doesn't happen now. Twitter is a bunch of crap now when it comes to feeding an email list. So you have to find different ways to do it. And anybody who's pushing that right now still is probably not the best person to follow in terms of that. I think in my person, that's just my opinion. I don't know what you think about that, but I think you have to kind of take current advice and then look at it through your own lens and then make it work for you. And I want to ask you, Maya, as well about your publication on Substack because you're doing really well there. I know you're sort of putting yourself down a little bit sometimes, and I know you have a tendency to do that, and you shouldn't because you're doing so well at what you're doing. I think you're fantastic. And tell me about Smarter Solopreneur. So what is your publication all about? Obviously, the name kind of implies it, but what do people get whenever they subscribe? What do paid subscribers get? I saw something you did yesterday where you do that Monday, like Ask Me Anything thing, which is a really cool idea. But tell me more about it. What's it all about?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for asking me that because the more I talk about it, the clearer it gets in my head. So again, again, it's not something that that was like crystal clear in the beginning. It was just one day I woke up, and I know Tony Robbins says that successful businesses aren't in love with their product; they're in love with their audience.
Mm,
And I just woke up one day, and that I've heard that quote like years ago, and I woke up one day, I was like, man, I want to work with solopreneurs. Like, I want to work with these people who are like me, who don't want to run a business, but don't want to work for someone. So it's that middle ground, and I feel like I can help them because I've been through so much. and I've made all the mistakes, like, okay, so about 80% of the mistakes, and I've done some good, so maybe I can help. And I had no idea. Like, I was like all over the place in the beginning, writing shorter posts, longer posts, posts about psychology, posts about statistics and money and whatever. And it was really finding my way. But the one thing I absolutely, and I don't know if you've heard about, I'm trying to learn thinking models, because they're what sort of opens your mind to different possibilities. And one thinking model that I love is the inversion model, where you don't focus on what you need to do to win, but you focus on the one thing that you absolutely must do not to lose. And it's something that Warren Buffett and his partners have talked about in terms of investing. Like, what is the thing we do so we don't lose a lot of money, or we don't lose any money, and then everything we earn would be on top, right?
Yep.
So focusing on how not to screw up, basically. And the one thing that I decided on when I started this, like really decided to focus on my creators business, was 2 times a week I'm gonna publish a newsletter. That's the one thing. So maybe I'll post on Medium or not, maybe I'll post on LinkedIn or not, maybe I'll whatever, maybe I'll work with a client or not. I don't care. Like, this is the one non-negotiable for me. And it really makes a difference when you set a goal like this, because you force yourself to sit down and write and publish. And even though you don't know, you just, when you got to do it, you just do it. And then somehow over time, it crystallizes, it shows itself almost. So in the beginning, as I said, it took me really long time to hit to 100 subscribers, 4 months. And then it started growing a bit faster. I started it in June, middle of June last year, 2023. And beginning of December, I launched paid. And in the beginning, I was just locking content. And I decided to write these deep dives. In the beginning, it was shorter pieces. And then I started writing these deep dives where I would like lock part of it. And it's how I got, and in the beginning, I also did like an offer again with the coaching session. And this is how I got my first, I think 3 or 4 paid subscribers, was an offer like this. And then I just started locking content, but I didn't, like, other than locking the content, I didn't at all promote it, talk about it, anything. It was just like, you're getting my newsletter, you're hitting a hard paywall, you either want to proceed or not. That was it. And that got me, I think, another about 20 subscribers. And then I was just going through this phase where it was like, something's not great about this. Like, I don't love the name. I don't love the strategy. Like, I feel like I love the deep dives, but it's so long that maybe a lot of people can't really, just either don't have the time or the focus or the attention span or whatever to really dive deep, or maybe they're not just not there yet. Maybe they have other problems. So wouldn't it be better to sort of hit more problems, talk about more things, rather than write super deep dives every time? So again, I woke up one day. So I've decided to be really in tune with myself and sort of listen to my inner voice, even when I have no idea like what's happening. So I woke up one day and I'm like, there's like a voice in my head that goes, turn off the paywall. And it's like, why would I do that? But it was just so strong. I had no idea how to, like, what else to do. It was just like, turn off the paywall, you'll figure it out, it'll be better. So I turned off the paywall and I started writing whatever. So that one of the things is what happened actually after I turned off the paywall. And I think that's what my sort of inner voice was trying to tell me, is that I stopped caring what I'm going to write. Because when it was a paywall, it was like, oh, it has to be this really smart, researched, elevated thing. So I turned off the paywall and I'm like, oh, I can just write anything now because it's for free. Like, whoever can read it, I don't care. So I just started writing, and then suddenly it was like so many comments. And it's not about like people not having access to comments before, because I always make sure that everyone can comment on my posts. But like suddenly there was like streaming in of like comments and messages, and people were responding to my emails being like, oh, this really helped me, thank you. I don't usually respond to newsletters, but like this was helpful. And I was like, okay, so I think that now looking back, it was just about my voice. And I
Mm,
feel like, and Sarah Fay talks about this a lot. It's Substack is a place where really voice wins. I feel like it's so important. And I was trying to stick to that type of writing where perhaps Medium, I would say, is still a little bit into not voice, but like
mm,
dictation almost, like how to do this,
mm-hmm,
yada yada yada. It's like, okay, like it's useful, it could be very useful, but I want to do something more where I can like swear a little bit and just be like short sentences, and Grammarly is like highlighting everything all the time. Like not happy with what I'm doing. So it's yeah, it's messy, and basically, but it worked. Somehow it worked. And I was like, okay, so now that this thing is working, I'm finally starting to get it right, and I'm getting more subscribers, and I'm like really feel like I'm reaching people and they find this helpful. Now let me think about what to do for my paid subscribers.
mm,
And I decided to just do it as a sort of a service slash product thing, where again I did another promotion where I promised myself that I'm going to do these once a year, where I offer coaching, one session for new paid subscribers.
mm,
And this was like I got like 20 new paid subscribers in a few days. It was really good. And then other things I started doing is I want to build a community where people, it's not just about me, because it's really great when you hear, oh, you're so awesome, you're so knowledgeable. But you know what? There are 2,000 people here right now. They have so much to share, like
mm,
just from experiences. I can never match this.
mm,
So I don't want people to say about my newsletter, oh, she's so awesome. I want them to say, what a great community. Like,
mm,
such great people here, similar to what people say about Substack, isn't it? Like,
mm-hmm,
it's not, when people talk about Substack, yeah, they say Substack is the best platform right now. It has everything, whatever, and I agree. But one of the things that comes up again and again is what a great community. People are great here, supportive, whatever. So that's what I want to create. And that's why I started adding these. So now I have an Ask Me Anything Monday, then I have Challenge Tuesday, and the Challenge Tuesday gives you a challenge for the week.
mm-hmm,
And it usually relates to the newsletter I'm writing, because I'm posting on Tuesday, my first newsletter.
mm,
Then I'm gonna have once a month, I'm gonna have webinars on different topics. And on Friday, we have like a little bit of a recap where it's, let's just everyone share what they did this week that was good for them.
mm-hmm,
And really, like, Ask Me Anything Monday, I didn't even expect that it would be so good, because it really was a discussion and people started helping. Like, a community is working when people start to talk amongst each other without you.
yeah,
So people started like, I'm answering a question and then someone else answering the same question, being like, oh, you know what worked for me? This did. Or that was like super cool. So that's what I'm trying to do. And in terms of like the angle that I'm taking, and it's really weird because I do feel sometimes that my way of doing it is a bit harder to explain, because I'm not about teaching you how to do it, how to make it on Substack, how to make it on Medium, how to make it on Fiverr, how to make, like, platforms are a part of it, definitely. And as I said, I've invested thousands in a website that got me nothing. So platforms are definitely the way to do it, especially in the beginning.
mm,
But I feel like there are essential business skills that would work on any platform. So
mm,
you have to focus on that. And of course, you have to learn the platform, but also you have to learn how to write a great headline, how to sell, how to market yourself. Like, what is credibility? For example, what can bring you credibility as a beginner? Because
mm,
there are ways to do it, right? So for example, I follow this person, and she's like a millionaire now. But in the beginning, she said, I read 370 books on buyer psychology. That was her credibility. And it was amazing. People were like, whoa, I want to know. Like, I don't have the time to read 370 books on buyer psychology. So give me the information. Right? So there are different ways to do it, even as a beginner. So again, this is what I'm trying to do, is that, and that's why it's called Smarter Solopreneurs, is that I want to make people smarter about building a solo business on any platform, under any circumstances, whether it's that they want to sell services or products or content or sponsorships for their newsletter, whatever it is. There's the right approach there, and there are skills
mm,
that are business skills. They're not just, I mean, writing skills, obviously, if you're in the business of writing.
Yeah.
but essentially they're business skills, and you're not going to learn them by learning Substack, for example, which
Mm.
again is a great thing to learn.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, it totally does, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you say is so applicable. Like, there are skills people can pick up that can apply to any platform and to any aspect of their business. And it's nice to, I mean, what you said there, just going back to about the community thing is so key. Like, that's something I think is really, really important for newsletters in general. Like, if you can create a sense of community around what you're writing, so it's not about you, it's about people connecting horizontally instead of just connecting vertically between you and your audience, that sort of way. I think that's what makes the newsletter thrive and uh, stick around for the long term. It's not just a short term thing. It's on a quick burst. It's based entirely on the whim of the creator who owns it. It's based on what people can give each other, going horizontally as well. What, Maya, is what's your like 5 to 10 year plan? Is a big question, I know, but for you, where do you want everything to be for yourself in the next, say, even 5 years, in terms of Substack, in terms of everything that you're doing? What's it look like?
Okay, that's a very good question, because I have like a rough. Okay, so I'm very. I think Marie Forleo calls it a multi-passionate entrepreneur, right?
Mm.
So my ideal life would be a life where I love what I do for a living, but it also gives me time and energy. Like, it leaves me time and energy to explore other businesses and other things,
Yeah.
because I want to do bazillion things. So I've started 3 novels, never finished either of them. But one of the things is that I didn't have time to consistently focus on them, right?
Hmm.
And I'm starting a new business now. We're starting a new business with my husband where we want to try to flip homes. And this
Hmm.
is like super risky, right? Because it's a lot of money. But like we've always been super interested in real estate and interior design and like renovations. And we've done a few risky things already with our own properties, like selling and buying and whatever. So it was like, you know what, let's just give it a go. I mean, we want to try this. So now is the time. We're like,
Hmm.
why not now? So ideally, what would happen is Substack, and when I say Substack, again, just let's say my creator's business
Hmm.
will be in a position where it'll make me a decent income and also leave me time to explore all those other things. Because I also feel like those things actually feed into creativity and ideas and everything else for my audience. Because it's
Hmm.
like, the idea to start different businesses, it's so weird. And trust me, I've done, like, you won't believe how many businesses I've screwed up already. This is like, I have to write like a whole separate thing about that. So I started, for example, a journal business where I designed a journal, because I write, like, for my novels, I like to write by hand,
Hmm.
the first drafts. And I also use the 3 act structure. So I'm like a plotter. I'm not a pantser. So I decided to create this journal, to design this journal where people can, like, when literally it has a 3 act structure built into it, and you can
Hmm.
like start crafting and structuring and whatever.
That's cool.
And yeah, and I printed, like, I invested again a few $1,000s. I printed like 1,000 of them, and I sold like 10. It was like, that was that. And I don't even know why it happened. I think again we got bogged down with client work, and it was so much, and it was like, oh, we're just gonna sell them later, and then we left them in the basement, and then it got flooded. So that
Oh man.
again, that was that. I mean, just ridiculous mistakes. Like, why didn't I think about, like, okay, so I want to do this business. I have to make sure I have time for it. I have to have a strategy for it, marketing, like, let's upload it on Amazon. Let's do this. No, I didn't do any of that. I literally just released an ad on Facebook, and it sold 10 or 15, and it was actually good. Like, I mean, there was a profit from that ad, and
Mm.
there was like nothing. I didn't have like a website or anything. So I know that if I was like invested in this and done things right, it would have worked, but I
Mm.
didn't. So why didn't like it's a whole thing. And that's why I want to make people smarter about their businesses, because it's
Mm.
not just about ideas, and it's not just about Substack, and it's not just about, like, it's a whole thing behind building a business, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, sorry about your books, by the way. That's so frustrating. Your basement
Yeah.
flooded. And I've been there too. Like, we went through a phase we made. charity calendars every year. So my wife's a photographer, excuse me, and we would get like pictures taken of the landscape around Northern Ireland where we're from, and we would sell that for charity and raise some money. But it was such a difficult thing to sell because people don't want to buy paper calendars in this age. So it ended up being this whole big burden every year where we're trying to get them sold. We just stopped doing it eventually. But yeah, I think you have to go through different iterations of yourself as a business person to figure out exactly what you want to do and what's going to work. And I think that feeling is kind of just part of it, isn't it? That like learning process and figuring out about yourself and what's going to work and what isn't. Maya, just coming to the end here of this because what you said is fantastic, and this is so good. Anyone listening to this who's interested in solopreneurship or starting a publication on Substack or whatever, will find this so beneficial. But I always ask this question at the end, and what is one single piece of advice, if you could give one piece of advice to other online writers, people who want to write for a living, and that they can take away, if they forget everything else we said today, but they take one piece of advice away, what would that be? Big question, I
Wow.
know.
Big question. So I want to give advice that because I know that you've heard so much advice, right? So I want to give advice that's applicable to everything, but also that's specific. So what I'm going to give is one word is clarity. And it's a very weird word, but I feel like because you've heard the write everyday advice or you've heard the just write advice, which again, I'm not a huge fan because I sort of think like saying to someone to just write who wants to be a professional writer is like saying someone who wants to be an Olympic athlete to just run, just run. What's the problem? You'll get there. Um, yeah. So one thing I want to do is though, if you want to work in any form as a writer, whether it's literally in writing like fiction, whether it's whatever it is, copywriting, writing online. I feel like, and selling your writing too, and selling yourself. I feel like clarity is something super undervalued. People are not like people are trying to make their writing sound cooler or smarter or like whatever sophisticated, and they're not thinking that it's not clear, that it's not instantly clear why I'm reading this. Like,
Mhm.
and it's something that you said about my writing in the beginning, right? That's how you felt. And I'm so happy that you said it because that's what I'm working on as I want. And even when there's a metaphor, it doesn't mean that you should write like journalist style, like
Yeah.
3 died today in a car crash near like we no, we don't want that. But we like even if there's like a metaphor, even if there's voice, you have to be clear on what this metaphor is bringing
Mhm.
to the piece, right? You have to be like literally professional writers, David, literally every word matters. Every word has to pack a punch or make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
So focus on making your ideas clear, whatever your ideas are, and whatever type of writing you're doing. That's what I would say.
That's amazing advice. Sorry, my voice is totally gone here for some reason. Um, even though I haven't been, I've just been listening to your advice, which is great, but my voice is for some reason feeling me. But yeah, Maya, that's fantastic, and yeah, and it's so true. Like, people can just waffle away about stuff for ages, and they tell these big stories, or as you say, it's just bone dry journalistic style writing. There's got to be that happy medium where you're relating things in a way that's using your voice and through story, but it's also getting to the point fast. I remember one of my university teachers telling me that you have to treat writing as if every word costs 10p, so 10 pence here in the UK. And if you think about it in that way, then you're not going to waste any of it. You're going to make sure that it all has value, and it's going to literally cost you something unless you write something that's really, really clear and concise. But yeah, excellent advice. And it's been really good to chat to you, Maya. This has been so interesting. I'm really looking forward to sharing this one with people and probably next week.
Okay.
But yeah, again, we've been back and forth and on Substack for a while, so it's nice to finally get talking to you properly and meet you. But yeah, what else have you got on today? I'm going to finish with this question actually. What does the rest of your day look like today?
Okay, so I'm working on putting together the presentation for my webinar tomorrow and sort of making sure that, again that everything's clear. then some client work, and then back home to the kiddos. So that's what it is.
That sounds great. Well, here,
Yeah.
Maya, thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for having me.
Yeah,
Congrats on starting your podcast, by the way. That's awesome that you did that, and you're
thank you.
like a guiding light for me. Now I'm gonna learn from you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. But yes, I will talk to you again soon, Maya. I'll see you on Substack.
Yeah,
And I look forward to reading more of your fantastic work in future.
you too. Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.
See you soon.